In 2021, a South Korean drama captured global attention by presenting a grim hypothetical. Desperate, heavily indebted people were invited to play children's games for a massive cash prize, with one severe catch: losing meant immediate execution. Months later, YouTuber Mr. Beast brought those exact sets into reality. He spent $3.5 million to orchestrate a meticulously accurate recreation of the games for an online audience. But he had to make one crucial adjustment. He removed the physical threat of death entirely, replacing the lethal outcomes with foam pits and harmless squibs. A squib is a miniature explosive device used in film production to safely simulate a bullet hit. This adjustment creates an interesting psychological tension. If you remove the fear of dying, but you maintain the immense pressure of a life-changing $456,000 prize, how do 456 normal people actually behave? By attempting a viral internet stunt, the production team accidentally built a massive, unscripted sociological experiment. They isolated hundreds of people in a closed environment with a single massive financial incentive. Over the next 20 minutes of footage, we watch a real-time behavioral funnel. We get to see exactly when normal people default to cooperation and when they switch to cutthroat survival tactics. The experiment opens with red light, green light, where the crowd of 456 is immediately tested on their raw individual survival instincts. Within minutes, over 100 players are eliminated, simply because they failed to freeze in place. As the numbers thin, players begin looking for loopholes. One contestant stayed completely still at the very back of the room, using the crowd ahead of her as a human shield to trigger the motion sensors and clear a safe path. The second round, the honeycomb game, forces players to carve a shape out of a fragile cookie. This animated diagram illustrates a psychological concept known as lateral thinking. Lateral thinking is the process of solving a problem through an indirect and creative approach, rather than following the assumed rules. We see this lateral thinking play out in real time. Instead of whisking a broken cookie with a needle, one contestant secretly smuggled a lighter onto the set, using the flame to melt the honeycomb from underneath and bypassing the intended physical challenge. In the early stages of a massive competition, players quickly abandon the assumption of fair play. To survive the initial cull, they exploit the game's physical environment and its structural flaws. By the middle rounds, the mechanics shift. The game of tug-of-war forces the remaining players out of their individual isolation and demands that they form tribal groups. The selection process is immediately ruthless. Teams ban players perceived as weak, enforcing a no girls allowed rule, in favor of recruiting pure physical brawn to pull the rope. Then, the production team introduces a specific twist for the marbles game. They analyzed the contestants' pre-game data to identify close relationships, intentionally pairing real-life best friends and roommates together. The rules demand that only one person from each pair can advance. Players are forced to sit across from their closest allies and actively eliminate them to keep their own chance at the $456,000 alive. The architecture of this round forces players to assign a literal monetary value to their real-world relationships. When placed under extreme financial pressure, genuine social bonds fracture in minutes. The final gauntlet before the end is the glass bridge. This round strips away physical skill entirely, relying purely on probability and psychological endurance. This animated grid shows the brutal mechanics of the bridge. Players face a sequence of binary choices between a platform that holds their weight and one that drops them, all while a strict time limit counts down. As the frontrunners fall, the remaining players experience the bystander effect. The bystander effect is a social psychological phenomenon where individuals are less likely to take action or help when other people are present. In this case, players safely in the back flat out refuse to step forward, desperately waiting for someone else to absorb the lethal risk. The standoff reaches a critical point on the bridge. Rather than taking a blind leap of faith that might clear the path for the rest of the group, 4 players stand perfectly still and let the clock hit 0, accepting outright elimination. When confronted with incalculable risk, the instinct for self-preservation paralyzes the group. They choose collective failure over individual sacrifice. With only 6 players left, the game abandons its Korean source material. To settle the final score, the remaining contestants play a universally understood game of musical chairs. The final eliminations are tense, hinging entirely on the sudden pause of a music track. Player 079 secures the last remaining seat and claims the $500,000 prize. Running an experiment of this scale requires a massive economic engine. The entire $3.5 million production cost was bankrolled by a mobile game sponsor, Brawl Stars, in exchange for mid-video promotion. Looking back at the funnel of eliminations, we have to ask, did these real-world contestants behave any differently than the scripted, fictional characters they were mimicking? The footage shows players utilizing loopholes, isolating the weak, and actively eliminating their friends. You don't need a dystopian dictatorship to push humanity to its moral limits. The sheer gravity of extreme wealth is perfectly sufficient to organically reproduce those exact same betrayals and alliances.